We've got a lot of developments on the Trump potential indictment front. Let's put this first piece up on the screen. All right, so we had the Jack Smith indictments here. We had the Alvin Bragg indictments. We had the documents indictments. Now we're looking at what is going to happen with this Atlanta grand jury. They are hearing Trump's case. This says early next week, but this was written last week. So we're now talking about today and tomorrow, basically. They are hearing the Trump case. And it looks very much like they're going to be handing down indictments this week. Could be 12 or more people who are indicted as part of this alleged scheme. They said Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis's timeline became clearer on Saturday. Two witnesses in the investigation said they'd been summoned to testify on Tuesday. Legal experts have said they expect the presentation of evidence to take around 2 days. So you do the math. If they're starting on Tuesday, a couple days, hand down indictments, that's what it's looking like. So probably towards the end of this week, we may be hearing something. There are two grand juries meeting in Fulton County through the end of August, one on Mondays and Tuesdays, the other on Thursdays and Fridays. Latest developments suggest Willis will begin her presentation of the case on Monday. That will be today. Public could know whether Trump and others have been indicted by Tuesday evening. So we are definitely on indictment watch. At the same time, CNN got a scoop about, we reported here a while ago, this little county in Georgia, rural county, Coffee County, where the election administrators there and certainly the Republican Party officials were very favorable towards Trump. I think the county went like 70% for Trump. So this was Trump country. And they really wanted to give him, whatever he was looking for in terms of these Dominion voting machines. And so we had previously reported, based on what was in the press, that they had given access to sensitive election information and these sensitive voting machine systems, which you are not allowed to do. That is wildly illegal, to these data consultants. Well, guess what? We now have direct indications of who exactly hired those consultants and set up this whole deal. Let's put this up on the screen. This is the New York Post telling of it. They say Trump blasts phony Georgia DA after report prosecutors have text and emails linking him directly to that voting system breach. Georgia prosecutors investigating Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election results are in possession of text messages and other communications that tie members of the former president's legal team, including Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell, by the way, to a January 7th, 2021 voting systems breach in the state, according to a Sunday report. One of the texts reads, just landed back in D.C. with the mayor being Rudy Giuliani. Huge things starting to come together. Most immediately, we were just granted access by written invitation to Coffee County systems. Yay. Again, that is illegal. The person who was most directly involved here is a woman by the name of Misty Hampton, former Coffee County elections official. She delayed the certification of Biden's win. She refused to recount results by the deadline. I think she may have been the one. She published some video alleging fraud with the Dominion voting machines. So, she went that extra mile and actually helped enable them allegedly potentially commit some crimes here. It's pretty ironic, Saagar, when you're so concerned about election fraud that you go ahead and commit some yourself.
This is basically the exact same thing that happened in Arizona, if we'll recall. During the whole audit of the machines, it turned out that we'd rendered many machines unusable because they were basically seized and or improperly examined by the investigators who were looking into fraud. This has happened so many times now at this point, where it's like this clownish and ridiculous gambit in order to try and prove the fantasies of not only just a man, but really of a lot of people around him who just don't want to admit, that they lost the election. I think that the most honest reading, Krystal, that I've seen so far from many of these Republicans who is they're basically like, well, we just got to embrace mail-in balloting. We'll just call it ballot harvesting, even though it's just, mail-in balloting, and we have to outdo the Democrats. I'm like, yeah, that's actually correct. You work within the rules that you have here.
And try to win.
And try to win, yeah. Shocking, I know. Yeah. You look at the rules of the game, you decide to play said game, and when you lose, you lose. And if you want to win, well, you look what you did bad last time, and you're going to try and do something else. Unfortunately for them, that hasn't really been working out, and they've been their own worst enemies in trying to prove, this is the problem with Sidney Powell, with Rudy Giuliani, with Mike Lindell, all these folks, is they were so, they believed this so much that they were literally committing crimes in the process of trying to, quote unquote, prove that the election was stolen.
Yeah, and some of them, I don't know. Did Rudy Giuliani really believe this? I have no idea.
I don't know.
I genuinely don't. But I also think this is a group of people in certain instances that just feels like they're above the law, like the rules don't apply to them. So, if Rudy Giuliani was looking at a Democrat who was breaching voting systems in some county somewhere, I mean, they would see very clearly that that is in fact a crime and that you can't do that. But then when it came to them, they're like, yay, we get access to the voting systems. We've been invited in, so it must be fine. Pretty wild. There's also reporting that suggests originally this grand jury in Georgia was being presented a lot, and they were looking deeply into that call that Trump had, what he calls a perfect call with Brad Raffensperger, where he asked him to, quote, find 11,780 votes. But as time has worn on, they've also taken a lot of time to dig into what was going on in Coffee County with this voting systems breach. And, this is one of those where, sort of like the documents case, there's more of a clear line here that you can cross versus, some of the January 6th stuff could potentially be contested. Obviously, I support the indictments, but there's legal arguments that can be made on either side. To me, the voting systems breach is a little more clear cut. So we'll see when the indictments come down. Of course, we'll be following it really closely here and bring you breaking news as soon as we have it. What exactly is contained in it, what they're laying out, who's involved, what's the conspiracy that's alleged. We've heard a lot about potential racketeering charges, so we'll see if that is part of it.
Yeah, we have no idea. Also, do you remember the Georgia jury forewoman and her media tour?
Oh yeah, that was weird.
Definitely going to be, that's probably going to come back to bite, I think, if any of that ends up coming into the public sphere. So the real point of this whole thing is to just prepare everyone for another indictment. Looks very imminent. What they said, early next week.
Tuesday evening, they said.
Tuesday evening. So I guess we'll be on watch as usual here over at BP. And the real one is that this also opens up a mountain of different charges and a legal battlefield, because this is not in the federal court system. This is in the state court system. It will be very different in terms of its interpretation. It also, in my opinion, actually might be the strongest on the grounds of election law, because in our federalist system, Krystal, states are the ones who have near supremacy over the way that they run their elections and have the much more capacity to charge, on these specific grounds than the feds, of January 6th, or any of these others. It's one of the problems it's been really for him from the beginning. And, if you look at it a state-by-state thing, the New York one pales in comparison to the level of legitimacy that they could have here in this case.
Yeah.
This is one of the strongest cases, actually, they might be able to bring against him.
Could very well be. And especially with this new information about the voting systems breach, might be clear-cut.
Right.
We'll wait and see the details. At the same time, one aspect of all of this that I find really interesting is it's like, okay, Trump, if you and your team really so strongly believe that there was election fraud, you're about to have these trials, go prove it to the public. He was recently asked some about, does he still believe it? And he's still, on his BS about all of this. He was also asked about whether or not he would take a plea deal. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
But I can tell you one thing, there was a lot of shenanigans going on with the elections. Whether you look at 2,000 mules, whether you look at the 51 intelligence agents, it was all rigged. Whether you looked at Twitter and FBI and DOJ, and take a look at what happened with DOJ. Take a look at what happened with Twitter. It's a disgrace. So, good time.
Is there any chance you take a plea deal?
One more call over there.
Is there any
Florida delegation have a message for your governor?
Is there any chance you take a plea deal in Georgia?
We did nothing wrong, and we don't ever take a plea
sir.
deal.
Yes, sir.
We don't take plea deals. It's a wise guy question.
Wise guy question, no plea deal, floating 2,000 mules, which, you can go back and watch my commentary on that. It's, absurd claims. But listen, buddy, go prove it in court. You got your chance in front of the whole nation. Go show how rigged the election was.
As we often said at that time, we're like, listen, man, 61 cases, 61 losses before the court. And, it is interesting, when you really probe it. It's like the MAGA people really want you to believe that the courts were rigged in multiple Republican states with multiple Republican judges across multiple jurisdictions, local, state, and federal. And that somehow in every single case that the hand of the feds was able to come down and to interfere and said this, to not prove. And what they've effectively resorted to, I've noticed this actually on Twitter, is resurfacing old clips which have all been completely debunked around like, oh, look, they pulled ballots out from underneath the table. And it's like every single time I'm just, it's like if that's all they got, then it's not a wonder why they lost in the court system in the first place.
Yeah.
Every single one of these has been looked into, people. You can retweet it all you want. That doesn't make it true.
Yeah.
But it will remain true in their minds.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.